a group seeking an international ban on nuclear weapons, has won the 2017 Nobel Peace Prize. The Norwegian Nobel Committee is giving the prize to the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, or ICAN. The head of the committee, Berit Reiss-Andersen, made the announcement on Friday. She said, "We live in a world where the risk of nuclear weapons being used is greater than it has been for a long time." The Nobel Committee said ICAN won for its work to bring attention to the catastrophic humanitarian effects of any use of nuclear weapons. The statement also praised the group for its groundbreaking efforts to achieve a treaty-based prohibition of such weapons. ICAN describes itself as a coalition of non-government groups in more than 100 countries. It began in Australia and was officially launched in Vienna, Austria in 2007. ICAN's main goal is to support enactment of a United Nations treaty banning nuclear weapons. The treaty was approved in New York on July 7, 2017. The agreement, however, did not include nuclear powers, such as Britain, China, France, Russia, and the United States. The Peace Prize announcement comes as U.S. President Donald Trump has threatened Iran and North Korea over their nuclear activities. President Trump told the UN General Assembly last month that he may be forced to totally destroy North Korea because of its nuclear program. U.S. officials now say Trump is likely to decertify the international nuclear agreement with Iran. He has called the agreement the worst deal ever negotiated. The president is expected to announce his plans in a speech next week. The officials expect him to say the deal is not in the U.S. national interest. This would not cancel the 2015 agreement, but instead return it to Congress. Lawmakers would then have 60 days to decide whether to reestablish sanctions that were suspended under the agreement. A decertification could possibly lead to talks on renegotiating the deal, although Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has said that is not under consideration. I'm Katie Weaver.
Americans are remembering rock musician Tom Petty. Petty died on Monday after suffering a cardiac arrest at his home in Malibu, California. He was 66 years old. Petty's family said he was taken to a hospital early Monday, but doctors could not help him. They said he died several hours later, surrounded by family, his bandmates, and friends. Petty and his band finished their most recent tour just last week at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. In December, Petty told Rolling Stone magazine that he thought this would be the group's last performances together. He said, "It's very likely we'll keep playing, but will we take on 50 shows in one tour? I don't think so. I'd be lying if I didn't say I was thinking this might be the last big one." Singer-songwriter Bob Dylan was a friend of Petty's. They performed together over 20 years ago in a group called the Traveling Wilburys.
Well, it's all right. Riding around in the breeze, well, it's all...
In a statement to Rolling Stone magazine, Dylan said that Petty's death was shocking, crushing news. The rock star added, "He was a great performer, full of the light, a friend, and I'll never forget him." Petty was born on October 20th, 1950, in Florida. The New York Times newspaper reported that he had a difficult childhood and did not do well in school. Petty said he first wanted to become a rock and roll star after meeting Elvis Presley while Presley was in Florida filming a movie called Follow That Dream. Petty rose to fame in the 1970s with his band Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. They were known for hits such as American Girl, Listen to Her Heart, and You Got Lucky. The group became members of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2002. But alongside his success, Petty suffered from depression and turned to drugs. A 2015 biography told about his addiction to the drug heroin in the 1990s. Warren Zanes wrote the book Petty, the Biography. Zanes told The Washington Post that Petty had had encounters with people who did heroin, and he hit a point in his life when he did not know what to do with the pain he was feeling. Petty once told CNN, "Music, as far as I have seen in the world so far, is the only real magic that I know. There is something really honest and clean and pure, and it touches you in your heart." I'm Jonathan Evans.
For years, people fleeing from war and oppression have sought asylum in nearby countries. Now, the United Nations is warning that countries are increasingly using refugees as tools to support their local and national interests. Filippo Grandi is the UN's High Commissioner for Refugees, or UNHCR. He says many refugees are being used as pawns as traditional guarantees of asylum appear to be breaking down. Grandi spoke at the Refugee Agency's annual conference this week in Geneva, Switzerland. The UNHCR reports a record 65.6 million people had been forcibly displaced by war and persecution worldwide by the end of 2016. This includes 22.5 million refugees who had crossed from one country to another. The UNHCR reports that in 2017 alone, more than 2 million people have fled their countries as refugees. Grandi told the delegates that in just 5 weeks, 500,000 Rohingya fled from violence in Myanmar. During the same period, he noted, more than 50,000 people fled South Sudan, while 18,000 others were escaping clashes in the Central African Republic. Grandi said that in some ways refugees have always been used for political purposes. But, he said, the problem has worsened in recent years. He said refugees have become a major issue in local and national politics and even in relationships between governments.
Protection is constantly being tested, and at times it even seems that refugees have become a commodity, traded between states. Principled leadership has frequently given way to an erosion of refugee rights, driven by confused and sometimes frightened public opinions, often stirred up by irresponsible politicians.
Grandi told the conference that immigration and asylum policies have become more restrictive in some countries. He said some countries that welcomed refugees in the past also have their own histories of exile and migration. He added that refugee protection is weakening in many areas, including in industrialized countries. He says protection of refugees is breaking down in traditional countries of asylum in Europe, the United States, and Australia. I'm Alice Bryant.